Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Seen Beyond and Through with Monty. Right before you is Tatum O'Neal. Well, actually, it's Tatum O'Neal in a picture for her autobiographical A Paper Life, which I read this book about maybe 10 years ago. It was a very interesting read, but there's something in there in which I want to bring up to you. In this book, she's very candid. She goes into what it was like to be raised in Hollywood. She goes into her drug use, the drug scene, her abusive mental relationship with her father, Ryan O'Neal, her neglectful mother, and she goes into a little known surprise that many people are not really aware of. And that surprise being is that her dad and Diana Ross were in a relationship. Now, for those of you who know that they were in a relationship, are you aware of that they were in a very abusive relationship that was very mentally abusive and very cruel to Miss Diana Ross? And are you aware of that she took it? She took the abuse. And it doesn't surprise me from Ryan because of the type of man that he is, even from his own daughter. Now, keep one thing in mind. When he got into a relationship with Farrah Fawcett, it was very physical. So it doesn't surprise me that it went from the mental abuse of Miss Diana Ross to the physical abuse that he had with Farrah Fawcett. But to give you an insight as to what the mental abuse was, here goes it. Tatum O'Neal writes that Angelica seemed to be out of the picture now, and my father was seriously womanizing. He and Diana Ross were slated to do a movie together called The Bodyguard, which was canceled and later made with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston as the stars. They began having an affair, and once again, I found myself in the role of my father's screen caller. Yeah, believe it or not, Ryan O'Neal and Diana Ross was slated to do The Bodyguard. This was back in the, what is that? Early part of the 80s, I believe. It's been on the table that long, which is not really uncommon for a movie to be made 20 years later. But anyway, Dinah would call and say, in a very sweet voice, let's go back there, in a very sweet voice, "Is your daddy home?" Whenever she called, which was often, I was supposed to lie and say that he was out. That made me feel terrible because she seemed so nice. She wasn't hanging around the house, so I didn't get to actually meet her until the late 70s, which when she came with my father to the set of my next movie, Little Darlings. Diana Ross' visit was visit to the set were the highlight. She was like a queen and very much in love with my father, and she wanted to marry him. He claimed that he didn't like her because she would never let him see her without makeup. He cruelly, go by the way, remember, he cruelly mistreated her, and eventually they split up. So Diana Ross is calling there often, and Ryan would have her, and I believe it was her brother too, she said, say that he was not there. But the story continues on. Remember what she just said. Dinah would call and have his children say that he was not there. Okay, Diana Ross and Ryan O'Neal had a romance. Ross found herself single and back in the dating pool after her divorce from Bob Silverstein, which is Tracy and Cutney's father, in 1977. It was early 1979 when O'Neal called the singer in hopes to recruit her for the Bodyguard. Oh, pardon me. It was in the 70s, yeah, 1979. He and Ross met years before as they had neighbors, I guess been neighbors on properties in Malibu. The original incarnation of the film first conceived in the 70s, and O'Neill was on board to play what would later become Kevin Costner's role. O'Neill and Ross grew attracted to one another, and he courted her for the film, and they started dating. Well, we know how that goes. But anyway, you use a film to get someone. That's kind of the allure right then and there. And I'm sure he did want her to star in the film, but I'm sure that he wanted to get a taste of that chocolate. But anyway, O'Neill broke it off with Ross. Though they had a genuine connection, O'Neill really wanted Ross to give him an answer about the starring in The Bodyguard. She dragged out her concerns and complaints for months. And by August, he pressured her for an answer. It was no. That was it for O'Neill, who thought Ross behaved like a diva. He addressed it in his memoir, Both of Us, My Life with Farrah, and he wrote that he got fed up with her imperiousness and called it quits. But Ross didn't seem to get the breakup memo. She didn't get it. I don't believe he made it really clear neither, though. And but Terry Borelli found out through Ross's hairdresser that O'Neill ghosted her. Apparently, he would instruct his secretary to tell her that he wasn't home, wrote the biographer. One day she went to the beach house in Malibu, barged in, and started screaming at him. I'm calling you and you're ignoring me. How dare you? Her feelings were hurt, Terry Borelli said. Terry Borelli is the autobiographer. Both eventually moved on. O'Neill with Farrah Fawcett and Ross with Gene Simmons. But that wasn't the last time they crossed paths. So basically, what had happened is that Ryan started dating Farrah Fawcett. Now, with the relationship with Farrah Fawcett, there are tons and tons of pictures out there. With his relationship with Diana Ross, there's virtually no pics out there. I tried to Google and bring up pictures of Ryan O'Neill and Diana Ross together. There aren't any. It's almost like she was this little secret that was only good for the night, that was only good for the bedroom. He really had no intentions of marrying Diana Ross. Remember, she wanted to marry him. And she's the one who kept calling him, kept doing all the pursuing, the follow-ups, and things like that. But Diana Ross was like his dirty little secret. And you have to wonder, how can a superstar like Diana Ross put herself into that position? O'Neill's romance with Farrah Fawcett once caused Diana Ross to burst into tears. Well, apparently, O'Neill with Farrah showed up at a restaurant with a mutual guest, and Diana Ross was there. They were heading toward her table. She spotted him with Farrah. She burst into tears and ran into the women's restroom. So apparently, Diana Ross was not over Ryan. She was very hurt by that. But Ryan had moved on. Ryan only wanted her for that particular movie, The Bodyguard. That's about it. He played around with her a bit, got his fill with her, and then he moved on. Read at the top right here. Ryan O'Neill and Diana Ross. She doesn't want to be black. So apparently he picked up on that she didn't really want to be black, or that she had difficulty being black. Let me just comment about that. I have noticed that I rarely hear Diana Ross speaking up about black causes. And I'm not sure if she was even involved in civil rights, movements or anything like that in the 1960s, like so many other actresses. Like let's see, 1960s. Who was that? Eartha Kitt. She could not be too much younger than Eartha Kitt. I'm thinking Diana Ross is like 70 or 80 now. But Eartha Kitt definitely spoke up about that. But Eartha Kitt's another story, too, I want to speak out about. She did speak up about that, but she had some problems with being black also. And I'll cover that later on. But Lena Horne did speak out about that, and there were so many other activists. But Diana Ross seems like she has ambivalence about black issues and black causes that she doesn't want to put herself into the middle of. And that's very indicative of someone who would allow a white man to take advantage of her. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when the most important thing is that they are white, you tend to excuse or tolerate bad behavior, like she did. Here he was disrespecting her all along, pretty much, though, not returning phone calls, not being seen out with her, not really claiming her. And she's still doing the follow ups with him, calling him, and calling him some more. People telling her that he's not there when in fact he really is. He just does not want to be bothered with her. And with a mentality like that, where he picked up on she does not want to be black, or that she has difficulty being black, that probably played a role in his disrespect for her. If she's going to be that disrespectful towards herself and to her culture, how can she expect him to respect her? She's laying all the groundwork, or basically she's showing that she's not a proud black woman. So you cannot expect anyone to really treat you with respect when you're showing so much disrespect for yourself. So it makes sense that she would go from one white man to another white man to another, and at this later stage in life ends up single. And if you check her relationships, mostly all of the men did the dumping or got rid of her. They're the ones who ended the relationship. So the moral of the story is, stop trying to go for the white man and go for the right man. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that was another edition of Seeing Beyond and Through with Monty, and I will see you beyond and through.